What happens when country music royalty sits down with one of daytime television's most outspoken hosts, and the conversation takes an unexpected turn? Viewers were left picking sides and social media buzzed for weeks. The studio was alive with its usual energy, as cameras rolled for what everyone assumed would be a routine celebrity interview. Reba McEntire, the queen of country music, was there to promote her latest album and discuss her recent projects. She sat poised in the guest chair, her signature red hair perfectly styled, wearing an elegant black blazer that demanded respect. Joy Behar, sharp-witted and unafraid of controversy, leaned forward with a glint in her eye that meant trouble. The other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah N., Sunny Host, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, watched closely. Joy started with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You've been in the entertainment business for decades. You've seen how much the industry has changed. What do you think about these young artists today, who seem more focused on social media followers than actual talent?" Reba shifted slightly, keeping her smile diplomatic but her eyes sharpening. "Joy, every generation has its own way of connecting with audiences. These young artists are incredibly talented. They're just using different tools than we had back in my day." Joy pressed on, unconvinced. "Don't you think social media has cheapened the art form? Anyone with a phone can call themselves a musician now. Back in your era, you had to have real talent to make it." The temperature in the studio dropped. Whoopi glanced at Joy, silently cautioning her, but Joy was already in full swing. Reba's voice stayed steady, but there was steel beneath the velvet. "Talent is talent, regardless of the platform. Some of the most gifted artists I know started by posting videos online. The tools change, but the heart and soul of music never does." Joy waved dismissively. "Come on, Reba. You can't seriously tell me a kid lip-syncing on TikTok has the same artistic value as what you built your career on. There's a difference between entertainment and art." The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. Sarah cleared her throat, attempting a soft redirect, but Reba held up a gentle hand. "Joy, I'm curious," she said, her southern accent thickening as she got more worked up. "Because last I checked, you were a comedian before a talk show host. And comedy, like music, comes in all different forms." The audience reacted audibly and Joy's back stiffened. "Well, I never claimed authority," Joy shot back, her voice edging sharper. "I'm just saying there's a difference between paying your dues and getting handed success because you went viral." "Paying dues," Reba repeated, her voice carrying the unmistakable tone of someone who had earned every note she sang. "Joy, honey, let me tell you about paying dues. I started singing in honky-tonk bars when I was 16, getting $20 a night if I was lucky. I drove thousands of miles in a beat-up car, sleeping in truck stops, performing for crowds that sometimes numbered in the single digits. So when you talk about paying dues, I think I might know a thing or two about that." Joy didn't relent. "I'm not questioning your dues, Reba. I'm talking about these new artists who get millions of followers overnight and suddenly think they're musicians. That's not how it works," Reba fired back, her composure cracking just slightly, the tension in the room palpable. "You don't just wake up with millions of followers. Those kids you're talking about are working 18-hour days creating content, engaging with fans, writing songs, learning instruments, and yes, performing. Just because it looks easy to you doesn't mean it is." Whoopi tried to jump in, but Reba cut her off firmly, her eyes locked on Joy's. "No, let me finish. I've been in this business over 40 years, and I've learned that respect goes both ways. I respect every artist who puts their heart and soul into their work, whether they're performing at the Grand Ole Opry or in their bedroom for a phone camera." Joy leaned back, realizing she might have poked the wrong bear, but pride wouldn't let her retreat. "I'm just saying there's something to be said for the traditional path, working with record labels, having professionals guide your career." Reba laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Joy, the traditional path you're romanticizing nearly killed my career 3 times. Record executives told me I was too country for pop and too pop for country. Producers wanted to change everything about me, from my sound to my look to my name. The traditional path you're idealizing is the same path that kept countless talented artists from ever being heard. The studio was silent, every eye on Reba. Camera operators caught shots they hadn't expected, and producers likely had heart attacks and celebrations simultaneously. These young artists you're dismissing, Reba continued, her voice gaining strength, are doing something we never could. They're taking control of their own destiny. They're writing their own songs, producing their own music, building their fan base, and doing it all without asking permission from some executive in a suit who's never held a guitar in his life. Joy's face flushed. But quality control, Reba, doesn't that matter anymore? Reba stood, a rare move on the show. The other hosts shrank into their seats. Joy, are you seriously suggesting the music industry's quality control has been working? I can name 100 terrible songs that got radio play simply because some executive thought they'd sell. And 1,000 amazing songs that never saw the light of day because they didn't fit some formula. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. Joy was clearly scrambling, trying to regain control. I think, Joyce, we might be talking about two different things here. No, Reba said firmly, still standing. We're talking about the same thing, respect. Respect for artists, respect for hard work, and respect for the fact that real music comes from the heart, not some predetermined path you think everyone should follow. Joy opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water, clearly unaccustomed to being on the receiving end of such passion. Then she slammed her hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. You know what, Reba? Maybe the problem isn't with young artists. Maybe the problem is with established artists who can't handle honest criticism. The words hung in the air, freezing everyone in the studio. Reba's eyes went wide, not with hurt, but with a fury reserved for when someone crosses a line they didn't know existed. Excuse me? Her voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of quiet before a tornado hits. Are you suggesting I can't handle criticism? Joy doubled down, ignoring the warning signs. You seem pretty defensive about a simple observation about the music industry. Whoopi flailed, signaling to the producers, but Reba raised her hand again, commanding the room with the authority of someone who had performed for 50,000 people. Simple observation, Reba repeated, her voice growing louder with each word. Joy, you just spent the last 5 minutes insulting an entire generation of artists, dismissing their hard work and questioning their talent. And when I defend them, you tell me I can't handle criticism. Let me tell you something about criticism, honey. The honey dripped from her words like a weapon, full of sarcasm and barely contained rage. I've been criticized by better people than you, Reba continued, pacing behind her chair like a caged lioness. Music critics who actually understand music. Fans who love me enough to want me to be better. Peers who respect the craft enough to give honest feedback. But what you're doing isn't criticism. Joy, what you're doing is looking down your nose at people whose boots you're not worthy to clean. The audience gasped audibly. Joy's face went from red to purple. How dare you? She spluttered. How dare I? Reba's Oklahoma accent thickened. What, tell the truth? How dare I call out someone who thinks she can sit in judgment of artists who've worked their entire lives to perfect their craft? You want to know what takes real talent, Joy? Sitting behind that desk every day, making jokes about people you've never met, criticizing industries you've never worked in, passing judgment on art forms you clearly don't understand. Sarah Ann looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Sonny Host stared, mouth slightly open. Alyssa took notes like this was a masterclass in confrontation. Whoopi, seasoned as she was, knew this was beyond her control. You think you're so high and mighty? Joy spat, standing to match Reba's energy. Just because you've sold some records and worn some cowboy boots? Well, let me tell you something, country music princess. Some of us have been fighting real battles while you've been singing pretty songs. The silence that followed was deafening. If you listened closely, you could probably hear hearts beating in the control room. Reba stood perfectly still for 3 seconds. Then her expression shifted. The anger remained, but now it was colder, more dangerous. Real battles, she said, eerily calm, which made it even more terrifying. Joy, you want to talk about real battles? Let me tell you about real battles. She stepped closer to the host table and Joy actually took a step back. I fought the battle of being told I wasn't pretty enough for country music. I fought the battle of being told I was too old to start over after my divorce. I fought the battle of losing 8 members of my band in a plane crash and having to find the strength to get back on stage 3 months later. I fought the battle of being a single mother in an industry that chews up women and spits them out. I fought the battle of starting my own record label when everyone said I was crazy. I fought the battle of proving that a middle-aged woman could still sell out arenas when everyone said my time was up. With each battle she listed, Reba's voice grew stronger, more powerful. The studio felt like it was shrinking around them. And you know what the biggest battle was, Joy? Fighting people exactly like you. People who think they know better. People who think success should come with an apology. People who think that because they have a microphone, they have the right to tear down what others have built. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Reba wasn't finished. You sit there in your comfortable chair, drawing your comfortable salary, making your comfortable jokes. And you have the audacity to tell me and an entire generation of hardworking artists that we don't meet your standards. Your standards. Joy, what exactly are your qualifications to judge the music industry? What songs have you written? What instruments do you play? What stages have you commanded? What records have you sold? I don't need to be a musician to have an opinion, Joy shot back. But her voice lacked the conviction it had earlier. Opinion? Reba laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Calling someone's life's work worthless isn't an opinion, Joy. It's an insult. And when you insult people I care about, people I've mentored, people I've watched pour their hearts and souls into their music, you better believe I'm going to have something to say about it. The camera zoomed in on both women. Joy looked flustered, out of her depth, like someone who had started a fight she couldn't finish. Reba looked like a force of nature, controlled fury wrapped in designer clothing. And another thing, she said, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at Joy. Don't you ever call me princess again. I've earned every single thing I have in this life. I've earned the right to be called by my name with respect, just like every other guest who sits in that chair. The fact that you think you can diminish me with cute little nicknames tells me everything I need to know about your character. Whoopi finally found her voice. Reba, maybe we should take a breath here. No, Whoopi, Reba said firmly but respectfully. I'm not done because this isn't just about me anymore. This is about every artist who's ever been dismissed by someone who thinks they're better than them. This is about every young person who's been told their dreams don't matter. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and let anyone, I don't care who they are or what show they're on, disrespect the music industry that gave me everything. Joy was clearly scrambling now. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. Reba's eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. Joy, honey, we didn't get off on the wrong foot. You deliberately tried to start an argument with someone you thought would just sit there and take it. Well, surprise, I'm not that person. I never have been that person. And I'm certainly not going to start being that person today on national television in front of millions of people who deserve better than watching you try to tear down their heroes. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Joy Behar, perhaps for the first time in her television career, appeared completely speechless. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. The other hosts looked like they were watching a car crash in slow motion, unable to look away but terrified of what might happen next. Then something unexpected happened. Joy's shoulders sagged slightly, and when she spoke, her voice was quieter, less combative. You're right. The words were so soft that the boom operators had to scramble to pick them up clearly. Reba, prepared for another round, blinked in surprise. I'm sorry, Joy said again. You're right. I did come into this thinking I could score some easy points, make some jokes at the expense of country music and young artists. I thought you'd just laugh it off and we'd move on to talking about your album. The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Audience members leaned forward, afraid to miss a single word. But you didn't laugh it off, Joy continued, looking directly at Reba now. And you shouldn't have, because what I was doing wasn't criticism. It was exactly what you said it was. Looking down my nose at people whose work I don't understand. Reba slowly sat back in her chair. Posture still alert but no longer aggressive. Joy, I know. Let me finish, Joy said, holding up her hand. I've spent so many years being the person who speaks truth to power, who calls out hypocrisy, who fights for the underdog, that I forgot I was becoming the thing I used to fight against. I became someone who punches down instead of punching up. Whoopi stared at Joy like she'd never seen her before. This level of public self-reflection was not something Joy Behar was known for. I don't know anything about the music industry, Joy admitted.
I don't know what it takes to write a song or build a following or pour your heart out night after night on stage.
I was talking about things I don't understand, and worse, I was dismissing the hard work of people I've never even met. Reba's expression softened. The fire was still there, but it was controlled now. Joy, everyone's entitled to their opinions about music. That's not what this was about. Yes, it was, Joy said firmly. It was exactly what this was about. It was about respect. And I disrespected you. I disrespected young artists. And I disrespected everyone watching at home who loves those artists. That's not opinion. That's just being mean-spirited. Sarah N. looked like she might cry with relief. The suffocating tension in the studio finally started to lift. You know what's crazy? Joy continued, a rueful smile forming. My own daughter is a huge fan of some of these young artists I was criticizing. She's constantly showing me videos of kids who taught themselves guitar by watching YouTube, or singer-songwriters who built massive followings by being authentic and vulnerable online. And every time she shows me these videos, I think, wow, that's incredible. But then I get on television, and suddenly I'm the old person complaining about kids these days. Reba actually smiled. The first genuine smile she'd shown since the conversation began. Joy, there's nothing wrong with being skeptical of change. We all do it. But there's a difference between being skeptical and being dismissive. And I crossed that line, Joy nodded. Actually, the princess comment was completely out of line. You're a legend and you deserve to be treated with respect, especially on this show. Reba leaned forward slightly. You know what, Joy? I think I may have gotten a little carried away myself. I could have made my point without getting quite so heated. Are you kidding me? Joy laughed genuinely this time. You were magnificent. I haven't been put in my place that thoroughly since my mother caught me lying about doing my homework in 3rd grade. And just like then, I deserved every word of it. The audience, who had been holding their breath, finally relaxed. Some even smiled. But here's what I want to know, Joy said, settling back in her chair with renewed energy. Tell me about these young artists. Help me understand what I'm missing, because clearly I am missing something important. Reba's demeanor changed completely. The defensive anger was gone, replaced by the passion that had made her a star. Oh, Joy, where do I even start? There's this young woman, probably 19 or 20, who writes incredible songs about mental health and growing up in small-town America. She plays guitar, piano, writes all her own music, and she's built a community of fans who support each other through her comment sections. She's probably helped more people deal with anxiety and depression than half the therapists in this country. Really? Joy asked, genuinely interested. Really? Reba confirmed. And there's this kid, can't be more than 17, who does amazing acoustic covers of classic country songs. But he puts his own spin on them. He's introduced an entire generation of kids to Hank Williams and Patsy Cline. He's doing more for preserving traditional country music than most of Nashville combined. Joy nodded, completely engaged. That actually sounds incredible. It is incredible, Reba said, her voice warming with enthusiasm. These kids aren't trying to replace traditional country music. They're building on it. They're taking the best parts of what we did and adding their own experiences, their own perspectives. That's not killing the industry. That's keeping it alive. Sonny finally spoke up. This is actually a beautiful conversation now. It is, Whoopi agreed. This is what the show is supposed to be about, having real discussions even when we disagree. Joy turned to face the camera. You know what, folks at home? I learned something today. I learned that when you dismiss someone's art, you're not just criticizing their work. You're dismissing their story, their struggle, their dreams. And that's not something anyone has the right to do, especially not me. Reba nodded approvingly. And I learned that sometimes the best way to change someone's mind isn't to fight them. It's to help them see what they're missing. Though the fighting was pretty spectacular. Too, Alyssa chimed in, drawing laughter from everyone, including Reba and Joy. It was, Joy agreed, grinning now. I haven't been in a verbal sparring match like that in years. Reba, you would make an excellent talk show host. Thanks, but I think I'll stick to singing, Reba laughed. Though if you ever need someone to fill in while you're on vacation, I'm apparently pretty good at telling people exactly what I think. But next time, can you go a little easier on me? My ego is pretty fragile. The studio erupted in laughter. The tension had completely dissolved. What had started as a hostile confrontation had transformed into a master class on how to have a real conversation about difficult topics. Whoopi looked at the clock. Ladies, this has been absolutely incredible television. Reba, thank you for not backing down. Joy, thank you for being big enough to admit when you were wrong. Thank you for having me, Reba said graciously. I hope you'll keep that promise to check out some of these young artists. I think you'll be surprised by what you find. I will, Joy promised. And Reba, I hope you'll forgive a stubborn old talk show host who learned something important today. Already forgiven, Reba said. The two women were now talking animatedly, with Joy taking notes on her phone as Reba recommended specific artists and songs. What had started as one of the most explosive confrontations in the show's history had ended with mutual respect and understanding. So what do you think? Did Joy Behar deserve the verbal beatdown Reba McEntire delivered? Or did they both handle the situation perfectly in the end? Drop a comment below and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Which moment from this confrontation surprised you the most?